The first thing, of course, that we are going to set up and work on with our system is a website. You may already have a website. That is totally fine. What I'm going to share and show you probably will help you tremendously with the website that you already have. But we are going to go through the entire build of a simple website. But I wanted to start before we actually get into that lesson where I show you step by step the building of a website on lead pages. I wanted to talk a little bit about websites, the importance of them, and some high-level thinking that every business owner should have about their website. It might feel a little technical at moments, but I promise I'm going to make it as simple and as painless as possible. But a lot of this you really need to consider, think about, know, and it's going to save you from at some point probably going down the deep rabbit hole of articles online, trying to figure your website out, trying to make it better, trying to figure out why it's not really converting anybody. I'm going to cover that here. So this can now be like your one stop for evaluating your website and enhancing it, improving it, maybe even in some cases simplifying it a little bit. And with your system module, you have that whole workbook that walks through a lot of what I'm going to talk about. And so you might want to have that ready. You can download it in most of these module lessons, and you can be using that to start to think through some of what we're going to talk about in this lesson, and then in the following one where we actually walk through building a website. All right, so here is what you really need to know as a business owner about building a website. Your website should have, let me move myself over here, flexible templates. Most all of them do, but you'd be surprised that some of the best website platforms, they make a big deal about their awesome templates, and then you get into them and their templates are not that awesome. Honestly, Squarespace comes to mind. It's one of those. WordPress is a whole other animal. So I put that as one of the key things about when you're picking a website platform you really need to watch out for, because templates can look great in theory, and then you get in there and you're trying to make it work for your business, and they can be so time consuming, and they can actually really limit you and hold you back sales wise. So flexible templates is big in my opinion, and you want to make sure you vet a platform very much based on how flexible the templates are, not just that the templates look great before you use them. Analytics integration is huge. That's going to be a huge part of the system that we build here in Savvy Startup. Most platforms already have some level of built-in analytics, but I like to go a step further and make sure they can pair really well with Google Analytics. Almost all of them do, again, but a tricky piece is, do they also have a place where you can put Google search in? And we're going to actually walk through that, and you're going to see what I mean in a later lesson. But you're going to want at the very beginning the analytics platforms that you use to be pretty robust, because you're going to want to expand according to the data that you're getting from your website. And Google Analytics is going to do it a lot better than a typical standard platform analytics. You can start there for sure, and maybe that's all you ever want to look at. But hey, if you grow and you hire people to be looking at your data and to help you make business and marketing decisions, that Google Analytics is going to include the tracking of your analytics this whole time, and it's going to be much more thorough. So if somebody jumps into your business and is like, okay, can I see the analytics? And all you have is your like kind of mediocre platform analytics for them to look at, then it's going to be really hard to know what's been going on this whole time with your marketing. All right, I will step back from that. That's starting to sound technical, but basically we want a platform that integrates with Google Analytics and Google Console, and we're going to walk through that later. Of course, SEO is big. There are a lot of platforms out there that are great looking. Wix is one that people love. They dive into Wix. I've not used Wix personally because I have been told, and maybe this is not true anymore, but I've been told that Wix is poor on the side of SEO. And I'm a big believer that SEO is one of the best ways to automate traffic to your website. We're going to get into a little bit of SEO, and you're going to learn how to make sure your website is pulling in leads from good search ranking. So SEO is key. You need a platform that has the capability of putting SEO in it as much and doing as much with it to help your ranking. All right, goals for your website. Of course, your website is going to need to sell. When people come to it, they're going to need to see content that is done the right way and flows the right way and is compelling. They're going to want to feel like it's easy to navigate through, and they're going to want to get their questions and their thoughts answered. And of course, they're going to want to be able to get to you if they need to, or if they want to buy something, they're going to want to get to that easily. So all of these are components of a website that sells really well. You want to make sure your website is informational, and that your leads don't look at it and then still have a bunch of questions. And then you also want it to tell you about your leads. Again, we're going to go back to the analytics. You're going to want to make sure your website is capturing that data about the website traffic that comes through, so that down the road you can be looking for trends and commonalities and things that you can just start to improve on. It captures lead info. That's a big one. We're going to talk about putting a lead capture on your website. That's going to be a whole other lesson. But I just wanted to make sure you kind of have a good overview for why we're going to talk about what we're going to talk about as we build our system. All right. So what do you put on your website? You want to put, obviously, what you do, what you offer. I really don't think most of this is rocket science. I don't think that you need to like over explain. I think you just need to be really clear and really simple. How you do it and what's special about your business. This is the second component that a lot of people don't do very well that you can be thinking about. It's one thing to say, you offer marketing services. It's another thing to say, we specialize in startup marketing systems. You see how that narrows it down so much more. What ultimately are you selling? Think about that. I actually read this the other day. Somebody said, and I've heard this before, that Starbucks doesn't sell coffee. Starbucks sells convenience. And when you think about it, you're like, that is so true. Starbucks sells the drive-through like at every highway corner, where you could just pull right off the highway and drive through Starbucks and get your coffee on the go. That's something that they've majored in. They don't necessarily major in this like eclectic, gigantic menu of coffees from everywhere. It's just like, here's our coffee menu. But our big thing is going to be that you can find a Starbucks everywhere, and we're always going to be accessible. So think in that way about your business offer. Like, what's the real thing that you offer? Is it convenience? Is it affordability? Is it customization? Let me try to think of some others. So Target offers an experience. When you go into their store, it's like they've got the middle-aged mom thing happening, and people just in that Target group, like that's what Target targets. Of course, they pick up other people in other demographics who love them. But if you look at bigger brands, you can probably name like one major thing that they specialize in. So that's how you want to be thinking about your business and what you need to say about your business on your website, because if you're too general, your website is not going to convert anybody. And we're going to talk about that when we talk about messaging in this course as well. Who your offer is best for. Again, that's being specific about who you're targeting. Don't worry about who you're leaving out. You will not sell if you try to go after everybody. You need to be very specific about like, this is perfect for startup businesses or entrepreneurs in the first 3 years of business is what I like to say. And I could probably get even more narrow than that, like women-owned business in the first 3 years of operation. Like, be specific and don't worry about picking up people outside of that group, because you still will. Worry more about people being on your website and wondering, okay, I get that she does marketing, but like, I just need somebody to do my SEO for me. Is this okay? Then I'm like, no, that's not really what I'm selling. I'm selling startup marketing systems, and I'm not really doing SEO. So like, that's a good example of, don't leave somebody guessing and having to go the extra mile of then clarifying with you. 3 service product options. 3s are going to be big. I'm going to really push in a messaging area to try and get everything into 3 or even less, and not go above that in most cases. So pick 3 service packages, product options, and try to kind of really hone in on just 3 opportunities for people to work with you. And then you can flex and customize once they contact you. But when they're on your website, if you give them too many options, they're going to bounce. That's never a good thing for a lead. Credibility and authority. That's going to come into play. We're going to walk through doing that on your website. Your credibility might come from some cool stats about what you've done for people. It might come from testimonials and reviews. So you need to know ahead of time a few ways that you're going to show people on your website that you have credibility, you have authority in your area, you know what you're doing. People have loved your products, people have raved about your services. And if you don't have testimonials and reviews yet, there's got to be something in your experience that you can kind of brag about. So think through the brag-worthy stuff that you've done. FAQs, I love FAQs. I think every good web page needs to finish with a list of FAQs. This is where we can get a little bit of a longer list, maybe go up to like 5 or 6, and just think about, okay, what are the main things people would want to ask me that I maybe couldn't make clear somewhere else and maybe want to get a little bit more in depth into. That goes into your FAQs, and your FAQs can be really key for helping with SEO. And there's reasons for that, but FAQs is a really important thing to be able to put on your website, and in plain sight too, not like buried down in a link in the footer or something like that. I like to include a little section that's like an about section, or maybe a business story. Sometimes if you're a service provider, that might actually be kind of high priority. And basically you're just getting personal, and you're making people feel like you're approachable, like you're a real person. You're not just this like stranger behind a computer that they can't see. And that's the section where you get to talk about yourself a little bit, your background, why you're passionate about what you do. Contact information, of course. If you've left anything out, if people need to get in contact with you, if you want them to actually reach out to you for a proposal or something like that, of course, we're going to need to make sure contact is there. You would be shocked at how many websites I've seen. And it's like, how do I talk to this person? It's just like they haven't even thought about that. So we're going to make sure you have contact info. Lead capture is the final thing, and that's going to be a whole other lesson in this course. All right, finalizing your website. You're going to need to add a privacy policy. It's a legal requirement. I know it's kind of a pain. You can look up other people's privacy policies. If you go down to the bottom of their website, there's usually a link. Like, bigger companies will have these. They can be gigantic. If I'm being honest, I am not like a legal expert in privacy policies. I've just used kind of what I've seen and adapted it to my own businesses. But this is something that you really should have. And if you like have some extra time or, by the time you start really finishing your website, you need to take some time and make a privacy policy for yourself. It can just be 4 or 5 paragraphs. I'm going to show you privacy policies when I'm doing the examples of the websites that we're making. So maybe you can get some inspiration from that. But if you are growing very quickly and if competition is tough in your area, I would suggest maybe even working with somebody that's a legal expert and really getting that privacy policy right. Also on privacy policy, I wanted to mention Google will require you to have one on your website when you start running ads with them. So it goes further than just making sure you're covered legally. There are actually some marketing methods that require you to have it. Again, you're going to want to go back in after you've kind of mapped out what your website looks like and says, and everything is looking great and it's very user friendly. You're going to want to go in and add SEO everywhere. I'm going to demonstrate that so you can see what I mean. And then connecting the domain and getting it published so that when people go to that URL, they actually go to your website. That's the final piece. All right. So those are the main things for knowing what your website needs, what's key. You can go through that checklist that you have, that workbook. And there's a few more recommendations. There's spaces for you to start brainstorming and thinking through a lot of this. And here's the final thing. You can always improve. Please don't feel pressure to have the most amazing website done right away. My thing is get something up, go through this checklist to get yourself started, get the thing published, and it's going to be great for you for the first year or two. And then you can expand. I also would caution doing too much on your website. We're in kind of a place with websites right now where more and more businesses I've noticed are actually scaling back on what they're putting on their website, and they're putting more effort into just really good, clean selling, like landing pages, fewer added pages about every single thing about their business that people don't care about. And so what I'm going to demonstrate is using lead pages to do a really good one single homepage and getting all of this critical information on the homepage, and then really just adding like maybe the second page that's your contact page, and that's it. We're going to keep it simple, but I'm keeping it simple so you feel like you can finish this in like a day or two, get it up and running, and then everything else is going to be built around that website. And it's going to be a lot better than if you tried to do it on your own, I promise. All right, now let's go build our site.